Hello, everyone. Good morning and or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, our end of the year or our discussion, end of the year fundraising campaign for the Cancer-Free Economy Network. Before we get started, a quick note that today's conversation is being broadcast on Facebook Live to the public as well as Zoom for Cancer-Free Economy Network members, potential sponsors, and those needing Spanish interpretation. If you're viewing this on Facebook and need Spanish interpretation, please click on the link in the chat. I will now let our interpreter, Alma, introduce herself and share how to enable interpretation. Alma, please.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna give these directions in Spanish since the broadcast will be in English. Buenas tardes a todos, bienvenidos a este seminario. El día de hoy vamos a tener la justicia del lenguaje, que significa que usted tiene el derecho de escuchar y hablar en el idioma en el que se sienta más cómodo. Así que hoy tenemos español, inglés, vamos a tener interpretación simultánea. Cuando yo termine de hablar en Zoom, en la parte de abajo de su pantalla va a haber un icono del globo de la Tierra. Cuando le haga clic, puede seleccionar español y eso va a ser todo. Si está usted conectándose de su teléfono inteligente o su tableta, en la parte de abajo a la derecha va a haber 3 puntitos que dicen más. Cuando haga clic, va a poder ver la interpretación del lenguaje, seleccionar español y recuerde en la parte de arriba a la derecha poner finalizar. Le agradecemos mucho su presencia. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alma, and thank you for all of our participants. I am Nse Witherspoon, and I look forward to moderating our discussion today. I've been part of the Cancer-Free Economy Network's leadership for at least 8 years now. I am part of the Health Science Nodes co-leadership coordinator, and I'm the fundraising chair. And it's really, really exciting to be here on this end of our 2023 year as we look to our decade of work in 2024 and some amazing milestones ahead. I'm really excited to celebrate our impact and look ahead to with our members for 2024 and beyond. And we have Nse Green joining us with the Cancer and Environment Network of Southwestern Pennsylvania. And we have Darcie Green with the Latinas Contra Cancer, and we'll hear more from them soon. I'd like to acknowledge the work that would not be possible here without the generous support of members and funders alike. The work that we do, I do believe, is critical. This event is at the heart of our end of year campaign, and we hope it inspires you to contribute to the important work of CFE, or Cancer-Free Economy Network. A very special thanks to Jessica, Aniyana, Deborah, and all who made today's discussion possible. So some housekeeping. Please feel free to welcome yourself in the chat. We welcome you to let everyone know who you are, your affiliations, also any questions or comments that you may have at any time. We have a short time with you, so we will probably not be able to field questions, but we will try. The CFE team will either answer directly in the chat or follow up afterwards with a response, and we certainly will make sure we get back to you. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to provide a little bit on who the Cancer-Free Economy Network is. Before diving in, I want to share that we are a network that is made up of 70+ organizations and individuals. We're led primarily by leaders from BIPOC and disproportionately impacted communities. Together, we uplift the voices of the most impacted communities and connect them with the latest science, policy, advocacy resources that they need to protect their health and lead the way to an equitable transition away from toxic chemicals to healthier alternatives, also acknowledging our changing climate. Our members are unified by the shared belief that the water we drink, the air we breathe, the food we eat, the products we use, and the places where we live, learn, and work, as well as play, should not make us sick or cause long-term illness such as cancer. So we'd like to celebrate our accomplishments in 2023 for the Cancer-Free Economy Network. Looking back on this year, there is so much for us to be proud of and to celebrate, and successes to claim. During National Cancer Prevention Month, which is February, our CFE Household Cleaners Health and Safety Lab launched a series of videos and resources highlighting the differences between cleaning and disinfecting and the importance of choosing safe and healthy products for your family and for those you employ to clean your home, a very important resource. Also, as part of our April work, Move for Cancer Prevention series of educational and action-oriented activities and events, we hosted an interview with award-winning journalist Christina Marusic about her then forthcoming book, A New War on Cancer, which features CFE's work and leaders among the unlikely heroes revolutionizing prevention. Marusic also lifts up our network and several of our members in her October article called It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, Let's Prevent Everyday Exposures that Raise Our Risk. Also, network members collaborated to bring environmental prevention language into state cancer plans. Following our success in 2022 in broadening the environmental concerns addressed in Iowa's 5-year Iowa Cancer Prevention State Plan, this year members advocated for Pennsylvania to include environmental health in its state cancer plan for the first time. We certainly learned a lot through that process. In August, CFE's Climate, Toxics, Health, and Equity Project partnered with the East Palestine Unity Council and others to host a virtual symposium called East Palestine and Months After. The event featured community members describing their concerns, the way that the catastrophic train derailment has impacted residents, their lives, their advocacy to support community health and prevent future disasters. We also heard from scientists about the health impacts that chemical release and what we still don't know, and from policy experts to guide us. See our event coverage in Environmental Health News as well. The Cancer Free Economy Network also co-founded and co-leads the Childhood Cancer Prevention Initiative, which met with members of President Biden's Cancer Moonshot Initiative multiple occasions over this last year to emphasize the importance of environmental health to prevent kids from developing cancers, coordinating support for Protect America's Children from Toxic Pesticides Act, otherwise known as PACTFA, and helped to plan the first Childhood Cancer Prevention Symposium in Washington, D.C. this past October. These are just a few examples of ways our work together is making a difference. So now looking ahead, we want to uplift 3 priority programs for the 2024 calendar year. Building up the Building Power and Action Fund. And this is a fund that exists to engage and learn from and support our people of color led and community-based organizations and leaders. So we're very excited about this fund and look forward to hearing a lot of your input and advice on how we can make that actionable and quite successful. We are launching our 4th Emerging Leaders Cohort, an equity initiative designed to support early career leaders, and learners from network organizations who identify as Black, Brown, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC, with leadership skills and development, as well as hosting valuable learning programs like the East Palestine Symposium. There is so much more that we have planned for the year, and it's going to take all of us to engage and really make all of these wonderful examples and actions wonderfully successful for our work. And I will just add that our 10-year anniversary in 2024 marks an incredible opportunity for us to really leverage our success, our ability to still be here and to make sure that the external public understands how valuable and unique our network is. So we are now going to get started with our guest speaker interviews. So I'm going to provide a few takeaways from my time recently, first at the COP28 in Dubai, and share a bit about how they, some of those learnings could collaborate with our CFE work and our Climate Toxics Health and Equity Initiative. And then we will also introduce our guest with us as well. So the Conference of the Parties, known as COP28, so this is the 28th year of this, of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, known as UNFCCC, was held in Dubai, just ending earlier this week. It was the largest one ever held, with over 100,000 registered. And that, in my opinion, really speaks to the urgency and importance of the discussions and negotiations and times we are living in when it talks to climate adaptation and resilience and prevention. I had the honor of presenting in 2 sessions, one organized by the Council on Environmental Quality at the White House at the US Center, and Dr. Brenda Mallory, who's the chair of the Council on Environmental Quality, served as our moderator. I was the only nonprofit organization on the panel, which also included a California state legislator as well as federal leaders. I then presented as well in a community-based focused session that the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments helped to organize, also another CFE member. The Chisholm Legacy Project and the HBCU, Historically Black Colleges and Universities Green Fund, also hosted a variety of sessions among other key community organizations and national organizations. There was the first Focus on Health Week, which has never happened before, so a lot of us in public health were very excited for that attention, much due attention. The first health declaration was also signed at this COP, with currently over 140 countries asserting that climate change is costing people their lives and health, and stressing that climate action will improve health worldwide. So nothing surprising to us, but it was very important to have that declaration at this global stage. Nonprofits, some countries like the United Kingdom and development banks all pledged at least $1 billion to climate and health-related projects during the conference. But you can imagine much more is needed when you look at the algorithms and the analytics of especially developing countries and our global south and our most marginalized communities, what it's going to take to bring them to a place where they can look ahead and be preventive. The United States has to reduce production of coal, gas, and oil by at least 80%. And that includes all of the goals for all major countries. But the US has the highest, and this is by 2030. The US has the highest cumulative emissions, with China as the highest producer of annual emissions of fossil fuels. So we are right at the top. We are very important to not only stay on these goals, but to stay at pace, meeting a 2030 deadline. There are other goals for other countries, but we are vital in this algorithm. There's a clear goal to limit warming at 1.5 degrees, but emissions first have to stop, and we have yet to really reach that mark. I also want to acknowledge that we did get validation that all countries are reducing their dependency on fossil fuels. Again, it's just the pace at which we need to go. We need to ramp up worldwide. For the first time, millions of dollars will be directed to developing countries that are already suffering damage from climate change. This is a loss and damage fund that was identified at COP27 in Egypt, where I was, and then further negotiations happened this COP and throughout the year for how to operationalize this fund. There's $700 million in pledges to date in this loss and damages fund, with the US pledging 17.5 million, but much, much more is needed. For the first time, negotiations ultimately agreed to both reduce consumption and production of fossil fuels in a just, orderly, and equitable manner in order to zero out climate pollution by 2050. This was a very, very big deal. A lot of news coverage and outlets are covering this. And I want to just, bookend that by there are many of our justice and indigenous communities and leaders who are feeling that this is just the same old status quo, that many declarations have been made similarly in the past at past COP meetings, but we have yet to meet these goals. Countries are also pledging to collectively double the global average annual rate of energy efficiency improvements from around 2% to over 4% every year until 2030. So more than 120 nations at COP28 committed to tripling renewable energy capacity by 2030. The world's two largest greenhouse gas emitters, the US and China, had already agreed to this even before the conference had started. So these are positives. Negotiators committed to accelerating and substantially reducing non-CO2 emissions, including, in particular, methane emissions globally by 2030. Methane is the second most common greenhouse gas after carbon dioxide, but it is much more potent. So more countries joined the US and the European Union-led global methane pledge to cut emissions at least 30% from 2020 levels by the year 2030. There are now 155 governments participating. So these were all very positive, again, getting a lot of news connection, and obviously the actions truly now are going to have to be determined. A lot of justice and indigenous communities are very concerned about loopholes in some of these agreements. So there's going to have to be a lot of pressure. I think that the Cancer-Free Economy Network and our Climate, Toxics, Health, and Equity Work Group needs to continue to find a pathway to supporting the United States in particular to meeting these critical goals and looking at our unique leverage point as the only coalition of our kind, network of our kind, bringing in multiple disciplines and how we can leverage our strengths to continue to help the US along with many other US-focused efforts on equitable ways to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels and truly help the US meet our reduction of 80% by 2030, so just 6 years away. So now I'd like to segue to guest speaker interviews and remind speakers to speak slowly for our interpreter, Alma. I'd love to start by inviting each of you to introduce yourselves. So Andre and then Darcie, please.
Hello, everyone. I want to extend some gratitude to Nse. You got us off to a beautiful start, so thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Andre Green, and I am the Network Coordinator for the Cancer and Environment Network of Southwestern Pennsylvania. And within the Cancer-Free Economy, I've been involved in the Climate, Toxics, Health, and Equity Work Group.
Thank you so much, Andre. Looking forward to our conversation. And Darcie, please, welcome.
Hi, Darcie Green, Executive Director at Latinas Contra Cancer. We are proud members of the Cancer-Free Economy.
Thank you. It's really an honor and pleasure to always be here among forward-thinking, progressive, and inspiring leaders in the field. Thank you. Andre, let's start with you. We'd love for you to talk about your experiences in the Climate, Toxics, Health, and Equity Work Group and being part of planning the East Palestine webinar, which I did feel was a very successful resource for the broader community.
Of course. Yeah, so a couple months ago, we were involved in planning the virtual symposium that you mentioned earlier, Nse, and I was lucky enough to be on the planning committee. And I would say that specific experience was extremely valuable because not only did it amplify the changes that have occurred in East Palestine 6 months after the derailment, but the planning committee was also set up in an orientation that really allowed the voices of the impacted to be elevated in all aspects of the decision-making process, which is not only extremely reflective of CFE's equity principles, especially in regard to authentic representation, but it also is indicative of CFE's commitment to lasting change. On the actual planning committee, there were East Palestine residents making all of the decisions. So making decisions about branding, logoing, who we should connect with, who we should talk to, what talking points are most relevant to our conversations. They were really instrumental in navigating the entire session, and highlighting their experiences was extremely valuable for me, not only to see, but I think as a full network for us to amplify. And during the actual virtual session, the first and the longest panel was dedicated to amplifying community voice in East Palestine. And it ended up as an extremely successful symposium that was really valuable and that really stuck with me. So I would say my time in CTHE can really be attributed to my experience on the planning committee for the Palestine Symposium.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate that background and, of course, your personal connection. As we all know, we need our leaders to continue to step up as we continue to expand our tent here. And we all value and get great value out of that by allowing others to showcase their leadership. So you certainly continue to do that, Andre. Thank you. Darcie, we'd love for you to talk about how support from CFE's Building Power and Action Fund, which used to be called the Grassroots Participation Fund, allowed you to get involved with trying to get environmental health issues incorporated into California's state cancer plan. Please, Darcie.
Yeah. At Latinas Contra Cancer, we're a health justice organization. And so much of the work we do is very grassroots, right? And is about building power. And before this fund, we didn't realize how important it was to be knowledgeable and involved in your state cancer plan, and how much of the work that sets the pathway forward for your state is done there. So because of this fund, we were able to, one, join that plan's working group, learn about how they set their priorities, where the cancer plan is drafted, how often it's drafted, what you would need to do in order to influence it, to get issues of justice involved in it. And so I'm really excited to continue on the path of being involved and looking at the calendaring for that, so that we can make sure that environmental health issues are prioritized by the state cancer plan, and which they actually were not one of their priorities when we started looking into it. And now our organization has realized through the network just how important that level of public policy is.
Thank you so much, Darcie. I think it's also important for our listeners to also understand the connection that you have to developing the runway in inequality and our toxic economy training with Labor Institute, which Latina Contra Cancer has been implementing. So again, huge value, and thank you for that leadership. It continues to be important. So I want to share also a bit about the Childhood Cancer Prevention Initiative and the Cancer Moonshot work. We have been meeting, like I said earlier, for the better part of the year with, first it was one staff member lead, and then probably the last 4 months or so, we were introduced the children's lead in the Cancer Moonshot array and arena. And these have been, well-respected conversations. We have been feeling the leadership group that comes together with this team, that we are being heard, and yet there have been missed opportunities, which have been frustrating. A good year into this process, we still understand well that our definition of prevention, which is primary prevention, trying to make sure that children and other vulnerable populations are not exposed when possible to the major exposure pathways, which we know due to a report that we all worked on almost 3 years ago now, can lead and has strong trends towards the development of onset of childhood cancer. We know that it's not smoking, it's not excessive drinking, it's not a sedentary lifestyle, that a 6-month-old, a 12-month-old, unfortunately, has a leukemia diagnosis. There's something much different there. So we have been, and we continue to try, we have another call scheduled soon, in fact, next week before the end of the year, to break through that mold and continue to identify pathways, such as having conversations with other agencies, like the Environmental Protection Agency, potentially the Centers for Disease Control, and maybe, you know, other key agencies like the National Cancer Institute, who we know embody and integrate and understand environmental contributions to long-term illness. So we will continue on that pathway and do look forward to making progress in 2024. Also, the Childhood Cancer Symposium, Prevention Symposium, the first one ever, that had been a dream for many years, especially Jonathan Agan with Prep for Gold was extremely fundamental in making this happen and successful. That was held the end of October in Washington, D.C., and we're already in the conceptual planning for a 2025 spring second convening. It was very powerful, I think, to have the National Cancer Institute present the entire time, impacted family members present the entire time, other researchers, public health leaders, child health advocates. And what we did here was that we were able to create a trusted space, which is very unique in a symposium like this, when most of us were meeting each other for the first time. I do think that there's ample opportunity moving forward between now and the next symposium to really harness and hone in on the incredible high energy and desire for every single person in that auditorium for the length of the symposium, continuing to validate to us by the end that they are ready to move, they are ready to act, they're ready to be mobilized, so that we can continue to make sure that childhood cancer prevention, and in particular environmental contributions to childhood cancer prevention, are not only on the map for discussions, but are really helping to lead action when it comes to the US. So in addition to our collaborative work, I'd like to check in with you, our guests here. What else do you appreciate about being part of the Cancer-Free Economy Network? Darcie, would you like to start first this time?
You used the word unique in your comments just now, and this is a unique space. As an organization deeply committed to health justice, deeply committed to health equity, deeply committed to building power, we like found our home, right, in this network, in a space that can be really isolating when you're at that intersection of justice and cancer. And one of the great experiences we had, where we really depended on the network for its wisdom and its information and partnership, was we chose to get involved in an issue locally in San Jose around an airport that's located right in the middle of a neighborhood, and that over generations of people has been spewing lead, right, and other types of chemicals out into the neighboring community. And we know that there has been lead impacts because of testing that's been done to these families. And we wanted to get involved in this issue as an organization committed to cancer and cancer prevention, but didn't know a lot about lead and how to talk about the chemicals that might be out in the air, and the impacts of those chemicals on children, on pregnant mothers, on people with chronic conditions, and just the general population. And we didn't have a lot of time because the issue was coming up for a vote, and we wanted to provide that testimony as a trusted health messenger. All it took was an email to the network to say, we're out here in San Jose, we're a coalition partner, a network partner. We're looking for people who have experience with these kind of airports that are located in residential areas, people with experience around impacts to children and families from toxins in the air. And within that day, I had so many emails back from trusted people throughout the network with reports and data and stories and offers to help and position papers. And it gave us what we needed as an organization to feel strong and comfortable about the position we were going to take. Obviously, an easy position to take about closing an airport, but to know that we had the information and that we could then provide that information to our community and in a way that would be sound. I don't know how else would we be able to gain that wealth of wisdom and information and experience? Who else is doing that work and collecting it all together? So we're very grateful for the network and all that is within it, and what it makes possible for agencies who want to do this work on the ground level.
Thank you.
And I will add that they did vote to close the airport at some point. So now it's the pathway for what happens next, and they did do an immediate proposal to stop the sale of certain kind of fuel, at lead fuel. So there's been some action. They have a long road ahead in the community, but there's been some action. So thank you for allowing us to participate in that.
I mean, this is huge, right? It's not every day, even though there are communities that work every single day among many different sources of point pollution. This is one of a huge one that many of us benefit from, right? We all benefit from flying and being able to travel. And what we do know by the end of 2023 is that we cannot keep doing and making these decisions, especially in the heart of communities, without community input and without the type of analysis that shows us what the impacts are going to be, health impacts, justice impacts, and on and on. Of course, economic impacts are in there. So Darcie, the uniqueness that you started with is very exciting to hear you lift up. And I agree that there's no other network like this that would have allowed the multiple of opportunity to learn, engage, and connect to make the type of progress you all have made. And I'd say a rather short time for the monument of the task that you've been up against. So big thank you to that. And I just want to take a moment and encourage all of our listeners, participants here, please do post in the chat your stories. We want to hear your stories. There's nothing too small. Everything counts. Let's all take some time to reflect as we kind of close out this calendar year and acknowledge the ways that each of you have shown up and how the work is showing up for you. Andre, I know that you also have some experience in learning from aligned work with other CFE members and sectors. So please, would love to hear some of your takeaways as well.
Of course. I want to say, Darcie, that was a beautiful story. And I really want to tap into when you said that you and your organization tapped into the expertise and the experience of being with CFE. And that really relates to my experience as well. Reflecting on my time on the planning committee for the East Palestine event, we really had to tap into the capacities of other sectors to make sure that it was an extremely successful event, right? So we tapped into the experience of public health officials, scientists, politicians, etc. So a varying degree of different fields and sectors that we really had to tap into. And I think that further emphasized the idea that there is power in diverse thought. It also makes me reflect on a very specific session that we had with the planning committee. We were sitting in the virtual space. We were brainstorming about which speakers to invite so we could decide the different topics that we wanted to include in the symposium. And I was reflecting on my relationships that I already have and that I could bring into this space. Again, further emphasizing the idea of collaboration. And I remember talking to, his name is Glenn Olshurst with Rail Pollution Protection Pittsburgh. He is the utmost expert in rail pollution policy. And I got my phone, I called him, I said, hey, Glenn, I really need you. I need you to show up for me. We need your help in this event. And he immediately was right on board. And I think that leveraging and calling upon those already existing relationships, even if they are in different sectors, really furthered our cause, and it also indicative of the idea of collaboration.
All such good other examples, Andre. And it's exciting because we all have been primed here to just lift up a few. I know we have a bunch more in us, and I know all of you do as well. Even if you're not able to post here, even as you think of them, please just send myself, Deborah, Aniana, Jessica, any of us, a quick message as things come to you, because I think it's really important for us to keep track as much as we can of the history of this network and the unforeseen. Sometimes it's that small touch, that one relationship that I was introduced to that turned into something a year later. We at times cannot quantify what this connection means to the breadth of the work that we are trying, the paradigm shifting that we are trying to work on. Thank you both. As you continue your collaborative work through CFE, what are you most looking forward to in the next year? I know I'm very much looking forward to becoming a mentor again in the environmental leadership program. I'm very excited, emerging leadership program. I'm very proud of that program. I think, again, it's one of our gold feather opportunities to give back and mentor, but also have some huge return on the projects that the mentees work on. for the work that we're trying to move. So what are you all looking forward to? And this goes to our participants also. Please also post in the chat what you're looking forward to in the next year. Andre, what do you think? What are you thinking?
Yeah. There's so much to look forward to. It's almost difficult to answer because CFE is engaged in so much, especially within the next year. So it's really exciting work. But I'm also going to lean on my experience with the East Palestine webinar. Surprise, surprise. It was just really so impactful, and it has really informed my experience since the session has happened. I would say I'm most looking forward to more webinars, specifically webinars that uplift community solutions at the intersection of climate, toxics, health, and equity. And I think that will also be inclusive of opportunities to uplift issues around petrochemicals, equity, health issues related to pesticides, for example, et cetera. I think that's a really exciting avenue. And I also am excited for further collaboration. So I know my organization, we have what we call our speaker series sessions, where we invite experts to speak for an hour about any varying topics that we choose. And this is a prime opportunity for collaboration with CFE as we move forward. And I think that this will further help to bridge between both regional and national networks. So I'm really excited for further collaboration and further improvement upon the webinars that we have in the future.
Excellent. I mean, these, especially in the world we're living in, where we're all over the place, it's an incredible resource to be able to have internet and to be able to connect in this way. And these webinars continue to be, I think, a huge opportunity for us as a network to expand our reach internally and also externally. Darcie, how about you?
Oh, so much to look forward to and be excited about. As our organization has been growing and we're growing our leadership internally, we really want to deepen our commitment to and our participation in the network. And so I'm so excited that we have our director of programs and impact, Melissa Gonzalez, will be in the upcoming cohort, in the one that was just seated. So very excited to deepen our commitment to the network by making sure that there is space for other leaders within our organization to also participate. Because as we do grow, and as I want to make sure to be more involved in the state cancer plan, I also want to make sure that we're at these nodes and at the meetings, and we need more people within our organization to find their places of participation and leadership within the network. So I'm looking forward to deepening not only our commitment in the network, but deepening the pipeline of leaders within Latinas Contra Cancer who can participate in the network as well. And last thing I'll say is I was incredibly moved by the process of creating the curriculum, or helping to create the curriculum for the runaway inequality and toxic economy work. And we're really excited to continue working on that intersection between the economy and cancer, and talking to people about the inequalities that exist there. And so we're really hoping that there's more we can do in Spanish in our community around that curriculum, and also the rest of the work that's happening to build power and momentum around the issue of inequality in the economy.
Yes, thank you. Another reminder that it's not just what we're doing here, but it's also the huge amount of respect and rapport that each member has within our various communities, our networks, our spheres of influence. People are watching us, funders are watching us, other leaders are watching us. And again, when you meet the timeline of at least getting past the couple first years of a network or a coalition like this, and you are successful in still being around and still being able to fundraise and still being able to attract but not repel people, we all have a lot to do. we are not limited in ways to engage our work by any means. So again, I think it's another feather in our cap that people are showing up. They're asking questions about Cancer-Free Economy Network. They're trying to ask about Deborah Often, how can I get involved? We have many answers to that now. It's very exciting. I also am very excited about the opportunity that I had as part of the Cancer-Free Economy Network and the Children's Environmental Health Network to participate in childhood cancer prevention trainings for the first time with cancer healthcare professionals. More of those are going to happen in this year. And so this on-ramp that our network here allowed, it's a win-win for us because this is children, this is prevention, and it's also what we do all the time, training and education. So it allows us as a childhood advocate organization to kind of plug in our strengths, but also get so much return as well. So I also want to mention the National Cancer Prevention Month in February during Black History Month. And we'll have a range of activities and resources and webinars as we usually do. Move for Cancer Prevention is going to be April 14th to the 27th, 2024, during National Minority Cancer Awareness Month and Earth Day Week. A fun way to support Cancer-Free Economy Network and learn and share your learnings. And then continuing to work to bring environmental prevention to the attention of the Cancer Moonshot, building on success of Childhood Cancer Symposium. And we all know that we have a major presidential election coming up in this next year as well. So monitoring and making sure we're steadfast and making sure that we do what we can to fundraise and really build the foundation we need, regardless of who is in the White House in the end of 2024, 2025, is extremely important to us as well. So please continue to post your thoughts, your stories, your reflections in the chat. As participants, we'd love to hear from you. During this time, I want to do what's really important with my fundraising chair hat on, and to make sure that I stress that the Cancer-Free Economy Network, that we are working hard, very hard, to ensure that the water we drink, the air we breathe, the food we eat, the buildings we spend time in, the products we use, and the places where we live, learn, work, and play do not make us sick and cause cancer, but rather I appeal to you that the Cancer-Free Economy Network continues to work on a reframing of this entire vision. Not a sick vision, not a reactive vision, but rather a proactive, healthy, joyful vision for current and future generations that everyone has a chance to attain. There is so much more work that has to be done, and our work is only as strong as those who here are able to support us, and many who I know couldn't join right at this time. Please donate today. Consider how you may also encourage others to contribute in various ways to the Cancer-Free Economy Network. Our work ahead requires that we have the foundation of capacity that we need to get our work done. It's very important that CFE members and leaders have pooled our resources together to form a $7,000 challenge match for this fundraising campaign. That's great, and I think it's the first time it's ever been done. Our ambitious end of year goal is to raise $14,000 by December 31st, and I'm very, very confident that we can do that. So if you believe that we can do more than prevent cancer by removing harmful chemicals, please support our work. Please help connect us to others who you think can support our work. And even if it's, I'm not sure, but just sending along a name, a contact to any of us in the fundraising committee or Deborah specifically, we would be happy to follow up. We don't have any moments to lose. I think we all understand the urgency. When I was in Dubai, it just re-emphasized worldwide the amount of suffering that is happening at our community levels due to the range of environmental injustice and climate injustice that we worldwide, and certainly in the United States, continue to be challenged against. There are even young leaders and older leaders whose lives are daily threatened because of their ability to stand up and raise their voices. That is not the type of future that I know we all hold among ourselves. So please feel free to link to the donate now link that's now in the chat and circulate that widely. We really appreciate that. So as we just recap here, we're kind of coming to an end. You've just heard that we are very proud of our accomplishments, not just in 2023, but I'd say in the last 9 years to date, and have much, much more in store ahead. So we've talked about some of the incredible programs and projects and highlights and accomplishments of the year and what is coming up for us even in the first couple months of 2024. Please find yourself in this work. Please let us know if any of this work that we've talked about today gets you excited. We want to make sure that if you're not already plugged in, that we find a place for you in some of these programs and projects coming up. And again, I want to name that 2024 is a huge milestone for CFE, our 10th anniversary. We want to support the network with a donation today so that we can really start strong in 2024. And this goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. It's always much better when we go and ask other funders to support our network, when Deborah and I and other leaders can be very clear and confident that we have a strong membership support for our fundraising as well. It really does help in those negotiations and discussions. So as we come to a close, I have deep gratitude for your spending your time today. I know this is a hard time of the year. We really do wish all of you great health, mental health, wellness, the ability to hopefully break away from this important work and just renew and recharge. Because again, we're only as good as we all are and how we come to this work, hopefully as healthy and as solid mind and as peaceful as we can, while also up against the urgency of our time. Please do support our work with a donation. If you're inspired by what you've heard and you'd like to join the network, please find out more about our membership on this slide, and we're expressing great gratitude and wishes for your holiday season. Thank you so much, and we look forward to being in touch. Thank you to Darcie and Andre. Really appreciate you joining me today.